Okay, where are we? Where the fuck are we? Does it say anything on here or not? Stop broadcast. It says we're fucking okay.
Cool.
Right. Sorry about that, guys. I had to fuck off and start up a new. If anyone here knows anything about doing live chats, you have to fucking, when you cancel a thread, you have to go back and fucking start a new event, which takes a couple of minutes. So sorry about that, guys. If there's anyone in the chat, we got the fucking technical shit out of the way. Hey, guys. I can't see Carl. Can't see Carl.
I can see you.
Okay, yeah, I can see you now.
Cool.
Okay, so we've just wasted 20 minutes. So we're going to get into the chat, I suppose, and talk about the Mick Taylor years.
Yeah, the number 2 guitar player, the replacement.
The kid.
Yeah. How old was he when was it 21, 22?
7 years younger than the rest of them.
Far out. So he would have been, early 20s. Big boots to fill. Okay,
so I'm just going to do a quick shout out. Yeah, sorry, Arvin. Sorry, Todd. Carl had some technical issues with some echo. So I can't pick up any echo here. If you guys in the chat can clarify that, are you sounding okay? That would be cool.
Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Sounds crystal clear here.
Yeah, no worries. So that's good. So whatever you did worked well. So I suppose for me, and we've spoken about this again, we're going to be repeating ourselves a lot on this show, given the subject of the band. But in the context of talking about Mick Taylor, for me, it was always Mick Taylor. You know, the albums that he was on, Exile on Main Street, Sticky Fingers. Mick Taylor's my man.
Well, I'm glad that we ended the series last time we did it, that essentially the 62 to 68 period, bar Beggars Banquet and a little bit of Satanic, basically the Stones were an up-and-coming rock band that mainly were an R&B band. When Mick Taylor joined, they were the quintessential rock band. If that makes sense. A bona fide lead player.
Oh, absolutely. You guaranteed. There's no argument. He came with pedigree. He'd toured with John Mayall. He'd filled in after Holy Cow. Who? Eric Clapton and Peter Green. So, and that Crusade album is just phenomenal. So, you certainly had the chops, didn't he?
Off. Yeah. He's just. I agree. Get Your Yayas Out was my Stones introduction, and after that, I bought the Rolling Stones' first album, which I, being someone that likes to always go back to the start.
Sure.
But Get Your Yayas Out probably is my favorite Stones album. I mean, I think it busted the button of my trousers. You think it fall down? You want my trousers fall down, will you?
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, God. The greatest rock and roll band, the Rolling Stones.
But if you listen to that album, what's really interesting about that album is the guitar work, especially Keith's guitar work, that solo work, like on Midnight Rambler.
Yeah.
And you can hear, I'm sure of it, Carl, and you're a Stones nut. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that guitar work was added afterwards, wasn't it?
You talking about a little bit of overdubbing?
Yeah.
Well, good point. There was a few touches added, but I owned a bootleg called they were doing shows pretty much every night on the American tour. They did a show the previous day in Baltimore. Yep. It was called Devil's Disciples. It's a bootleg, and it was cut from the soundboard. No overdubbing, no adding. That Get Yaya's Out sound is pretty close to what they were doing at that particular time. Because the most famous bootleg on that tour, which was the start of a lot of bootlegs called Liver Than You'll Ever Be, they were rough at the start of that tour. Rough. Yep. Just like us tonight, they had sound problems. They had they were just rough. So Get Yaya's Out was a true, about 90% factual, 10% touches. Because if you're fortunate enough to have the DVD, remastered Get Yaya's Out, they did on Free, Satisfaction, Under My Thumb, and I think they added songs from both of those shows to complete that album. And a lot of that ad-lib in between songs was added on later. But that was pretty much what they were doing at that particular time, was that sound. But you're right, Keith Richards, Mick Taylor drove Keith Richards, I reckon, to a more stronger, I wouldn't say technical, but a better guitar player, I think. You know, because he's got a whiz behind him now. No more interweaving where you can just drop off his rhythm and someone else, picks up the rhythm.
Yeah. Look, and hey, Simon. Simon's joining us, so g'day. Look, I think there's a couple of interesting observations when I was doing a bit of research for this show. And when you look at the two gigs that Mick Taylor did at the start, the first one was Hyde Park, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were pretty rough.
And then not long after that, he was thrown into with the rest of the Stones into Altamont, which is famous for a lot of things, being what the West Coast version of Woodstock. What's interesting about that that performance, if you listen to that Gimme Shelter DVD, and we've spoken about that a couple of times, that's critical for a Stones nut. You have to watch that because that captures a lot of what was going on, the tone that you were just talking about, and the fluidity of Mick's playing. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've got a few notes here. I mean, the Rolling Stones sound changed overnight. We had not a virtuoso, but a proper lead player.
Sure.
And I've written a few songs where he's just masterful. I mean, the live version of Sympathy for the Devil, the studio track Sway, Time Waits for No One. Mick and Keith to this day say that's one of their favourite tracks, favourite Mick Taylor song solos. The live version of Stray Cat Blues on Ya-Ya's. The band went to another level. And we talked about this before, and you mentioned repeating, and I don't mind repeating because it's great, because it's just like, PA systems on the 69 tour. The teeny boppers had left university and were adults. Obviously the Vietnam War, and bands were mature. A lot of the Brit pop stuff got phased out, and Stones were still there, survivors. But I mean, different style of audience, different audience and a different sound. Different audience and a different sound. Bigger tours. And the other thing I like about Mick Taylor is we know that the Stones have always had great slide players. He fell into that slide playing really well. Love in Vain, glorious solo.
It's phenomenal.
Mick and Keith love country. Keith took a bit of a back seat. He could concentrate on his country acoustic, and Mick did some beautiful Dead Flowers and the stuff on Exile. Beautiful country licks.
Yeah, and we can't also discount his rhythm playing, because on Get Your Ya-Ya's out, Sympathy with the Devil, that's Keith playing the lead, and who's playing the rhythm? It's Mick Taylor,
Yeah.
just going. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Mick.
At the start, for sure. At the start. And definitely all the rhythm on the Chuck Berry songs.
Definitely.
Yeah. So he's pivotal. We talked about this before. The Stones peaked with Mick Taylor. They peaked.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about Mick Taylor, and we go back to what Keith always wanted in the Stones, the interweaving. We've spoken about that before, and Keith has made reference to that many times. They wanted to have two lead guitar sound. They wanted that interweaving. So he certainly got it. If they were working on it with Brian Jones to a point where it was going to go into the atmosphere, go to the stratosphere and beyond, it certainly did with Mick Taylor, didn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing is,
how important do you think, though, the gear was? The different guitars that they were using, and getting that that interweaving sound that we've left with. How important do you think that was?
Are you talking about comparing Brian to Mick Taylor?
No. Like, for example, Mick using Gibsons, and Keith using Fenders, and playing those two guitars to get that interweaving sound.
Yeah, I think the gear was, especially when Keith transitioned to Fenders, you could definitely, the Stones pretty much was Tumbling Dice was played with the Fender or a Strat.
Well, I'm going to say with his Telecaster, yeah.
Yeah. So that Exile pretty much cemented the Stones sound that we all know now, and so I think the transition from Keith to Fenders was really instrumental in their sound changing too. Then we had the classic years of the Keith riffs.
Yeah, and you've got all those wonderful pics of Mick in France. A lot of those pics he's playing his ES355, isn't he?
Yeah, but there wasn't really much interweaving going on. They had Keith with his rhythm and Mick with his glorious solos.
Yep.
The whole sound changed. R&B to rock. It was a rock sound. I had something else I was going to say.
Oh, sorry, I always interrupt.
No, I've lost my train of thought. It was quite, it was good. I thought it was good.
Mate, dig it out, man, because it's probably good.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Mick Jagger hired Mick Taylor, eh? You know that, eh?
Yes.
Keith didn't hire him.
Yes, that's correct.
So it just goes to show you that as great as Keith is, Mick was the guy that had the direction and the intellect and the vision. Keith was very much just, laid back in his hotel room, his little bit of medicinal help. Mick Jagger was very much, he had his very much ear and feet close to the street and the beat,
and I think that's also credit to Mick Jagger in taking John Mayall at his word, because John Mayall told him, you need to check this guy out. It was, as far as I know, I could be corrected there, but John Mayall, or did he ring John Mayall and ask him about Mick Taylor? I can't remember, but certainly he heard.
Well, he called him up. He called him
Yeah.
up, and basically John saw the writing on the wall. How am I going to compete with the Rolling Stones? You might as well have him.
So Soda's asking what guitars did Mick use. So he's known for using Gibsons, Stratocaster, SG, Les Pauls, and your guitar.
Yeah. He used the SG a lot.
Yes.
And probably the second favourite he had was the Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I really liked the fact that he got a country sound out of a Gibson. That shows you how good he was. So,
why do these guys like recording so much with these hollow bodies? Because he must have recorded a lot with his ES355. There's a lot of pictures that I mentioned before of him in France. What is it about those hollow bodies, you think, in the recording process that they like? Is it the warmth that you get?
Possibly with the hollow body in the studio, you don't have to turn it up so loud. Because you can play a hollow body acoustic style without any amplification. Yeah, I don't know. Plus, they're fairly light. They look cool.
Yeah.
To slightly get off topic, it's always been up for debate, but who else did they audition around the 69 time? Eric was asked, but that was just a rumour. Roy Buchanan was asked, but no photos were taken. Ron Wood said something about Hyde Park. I know you didn't ask me, but I'll be there one day. That'd be great.
I don't think we've spoken about that. We've spoken about the guys that recorded a couple of songs when Taylor left.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was anyone serious other than Mick Jagger. I mean, oh gosh, shit, all these bloody other than Eric Clapton. I don't think there was anyone.
Yeah.
From my research or from my memory, and unless there's Simon in the chat might know, or
there was definitely a few names thrown in the hat. From all my reading years ago, but nothing. It was all hearsay. I think the most valid one was obviously Eric Clapton, but Eric Clapton's ego was too big to join the Stones.
We've got a new guy in the chat, Ed Wards. I'm sorry if you've been in the chat before, Ed, but I haven't come across you. But he's saying that Rory Gallagher was asked.
I think I heard that too, yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
See, I thought I was a Stones nut and knew everything.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Roy Gallagher because I was just doing some YouTube time wasting and they had an interview on Slash. And he reckoned he was the only guy in LA that liked Rory Gallagher.
Slash
loves him.
So besides Jeff Beck, who he talks about
Jimmy Page
continuously in his book,
Joe Perry,
I can't recall coming across him mentioning Rory Gallagher in his book. That's interesting. Maybe we need to do a show on Rory Gallagher because what's that album Live
74 tour? 74 tour.
Yeah. That's phenomenal.
Great cover. And he had an amazing knack for holding a band together with just three guys.
Playing a Strat.
Yeah. He would have influenced Gary Moore for sure.
That's not easy to do, man. Playing a strat, you can't hide behind. No disrespect to Gibson, but you've got that thickness. You've got a wall of sound there going on.
Basically, it's like your humbuckers are cut in half.
Yeah.
One humbucker equals 2 strat pickups.
Irish Tour, that's the one. That's phenomenal lead.
Double album.
Yeah.
Plus, he plays the slide really well, eh?
Oh.
And Bullfrog Blues or something?
And Irish and Catholic guys used to go to his gigs, man.
Is that right?
And just get on the piss and have a good time.
He was pretty wild.
Toto's saying, is that why Slash wears flannel? That's right, because Rory was famous for that.
Oh, flannels, yeah. Slash talked about that because he didn't know the term, and the reporter said, "You mean flannel shirts?" Is that right?
Yeah. So is this something recently on YouTube? Him talking about Rory Gallagher?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Might be 2 years old, 4, 6, maybe last year, maybe this year. I don't know.
Okay, I need to dig that out, man. I need to do some research.
Yeah. Well, Slash is actually a very intelligent guy. I think he's a bit like Keith. He hides behind his shades and his hat, but he's actually not really that drugged out guy. That was just an image.
I agree.
Yeah. He's actually, once you take the shades off, and he's actually just a normal dude.
Yeah, Duff was the party animal. Duff was the guy that wasn't pretending to be anything. He was the guy that was 100 miles ahead.
He was the punk rocker in the band, eh?
Yeah, the bass player. So I'm just going to get up and pull some curtains, but I can still hear him talk, mate. So no problem. So we got off track there. So Rory was, who asked Rory to join the band? Do you know?
Well, I just think they were in panic mode. You know, here's this 3/4 finished album, Let It Bleed.
Yeah.
Here's all these tours happening. Stones have big egos.
Yeah.
Alan Klein's in the mix.
Yeah.
We haven't toured in a couple of years. Beggars Banquet's still hot. We need a guitar player quickly. So, yeah. And a lot of the guitar players at that particular time that were good were already established doing their own thing. So Mick Taylor was perfect, young, melodic, and far out. Can you imagine the phone call? Hi, Carl. It's Mick. You got an opportunity to join the greatest rock and roll band in the world. What do you want? What do you want to do? Far out.
Yeah, there's a quote that I'm trying to find, which I thought was interesting, where Keith said, he said Mick wanted to do more and more in the band, and we wanted him to. Then he left, and then he did nothing.
Taylor, yeah.
Well, and then he did nothing. So. Do you think that was a bad move on behalf of Mick Taylor to leave the band? We know that he had drug issues, and he was upset because he wasn't getting paid royalties. But maybe that was a bad move.
I think that I think Mick Taylor's, I wouldn't say ego, but I think that he thought he could carry the Stones thing through on a solo level, and it just didn't come to fruition. I mean, many guys have tried it, sidemen in the band.
Yeah,
and he probably didn't want to be known as a sideman, And I can relate to how disappointed he was. He writes "Time Waits for No One." He might have written a few riffs, but the record comes out, Jagger Richards.
Yep.
Not Jagger Richards Jones, Jagger Richards Wyman, Jagger Richards Taylor.
Yep.
Glimmer twins, Glimmer twins, Glimmer twins.
Yep.
You know, it's like you and I when we were working. Walton Wilson. It was always McConnell.
So do you think that's enough to piss him off? That's enough to piss him off?
It would piss me off. It'd piss you off. Robertson, McConnell Robertson. You know, no Walton Wilsons.
Yeah.
Our ideas.
Yeah.
On any capacity, whether it's music, whether it's art, paintings, movies, credits. We hear the word credit. What's the extension of the word credit? Giving credit where credit's due.
Sure.
So, you know, Mick was probably pretty hot at that particular time. It's only rock and roll, beautiful solos. He probably thought, my presence is big enough to carry on. But guess what? Once again, we've got to mention this word. You ain't nothing without a great showman singer. I mean, if Keith went solo in 74, it would have been nothing. Wyman tried it. I mean, novelty albums.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you. I think, but I do have a certain amount of respect for Mick Taylor, because he said, you know, recently when Crossfire Hurricane, the DVD came out to celebrate their 50th anniversary, I think, you know, we've discussed this a few times. He came out, and I think that's when a lot of us found out that actually he was addicted. He was on heroin, and we didn't know that. And for years, we always were led to believe that one of the reasons, or the main reason why he left the band, was because he wasn't getting the recognition that he was due. Well, or thought that he should have received. So you know, I respect him in one sense. You know, he wanted to get away and get himself clean. Sad though that he thought that he had to leave the band to do that, because if you look at Keith, you know, Keith pissed off to Switzerland, didn't he? And had security guards, and then he had his drug dealers doing visits to him there, and then he had to go to Jamaica to get cleaned out or something, you know. So
yeah. The other thing is Mick Taylor, getting back to his personality, a bit like Brian Jones, is they're both quite introverted guys. They're not, you know, certain people are cut out for the road and certain people aren't. So you can imagine, you know, it would have taken a toll on a shy boy. He's a shy boy. Working class
boy.
Yeah, very shy. You know, we've seen his interviews. He doesn't say much. So, and we'll talk about Ron Wood next week, but when Ron Wood joined, it was, even though his guitar playing is not as good as Mick Taylor's, it was like a breath of fresh air for the band as far as fun.
Yeah.
So the Stones went from fun to the 60s period of the Majesty's Request and all these different phases, then to this rock, and then Mick Taylor, let's not forget his jazz influence too, his jazz blues playing. And they went to quite a technical level. But Keith's always said, you know, we're kind of working class, like what you said, working class garage band. You know, we're kind of missing something here. So, you know, and then we can talk about the 75 tour next week with Ron Wood and Mick Taylor. Sorry, Ron Wood and Keith Richards jumping around all over the place. No, sorry, Ron Wood and Mick Jagger jumping around and patting each other.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments. Simon's making a comment. The Irish tour was 74. I had assumed it was to replace Mick Taylor and the Stones in 75. Todd's making a good point too about rest in peace, Dick Dale. He passed away, so the king of surf guitar. So we should mention that.
Saw him live.
So yeah, Simon's agreeing with us, saying that Taylor wanted to protect his family from the drugs on the Stones. So that's worthy. He because he was in the middle of it, he could see what was going to happen. He was at Nowcote, so yeah. G'day Jimmy T, and I suspect Simon is saying that Mick Taylor played the live concert of Tubular Bells in '73.
Oh wow!
Is that right, Simon? Is that Mick Taylor doing that? Yeah. I see. I didn't know that either. But I do remember about 10 years ago, doing some serious listening of the stuff that he did with Jack Bruce. What was the name of that?
I don't know.
They've got an album on Spotify, but was that supposed to be some big band that didn't eventuate, or some kind of partnership that the recording companies thought was going to take off because of who they were?
Well, it just goes back to certain people have a certain charisma and certain people don't. For example, Cream. You've got Jack Bruce's amazing vocals, Ginger Baker, 3 amazing musicians, but Eric Clapton had something a little bit extra. We could talk about frontman, singer-songwriter. Same thing with quite a few of the Noel Redding when Jimi Hendrix when it disbanded, he Fat Mattress.
Yep.
Certain people just have a selling ability. I don't know what it is. Mick Taylor didn't have it.
Yeah.
I prefer Jimmy Vaughan and the Fabulous Thunderbirds. I don't like his solo stuff. He's not a Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan had that very much that frontman bolt of lightning energy. So music's a funny thing. Certain people have it, certain people don't. As far as a presence, a visual appeal. Mick Jagger, probably one of the greatest showmen ever. James Brown, there's certain people that just have it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be bored to tears if Mick Taylor was at a concert. I'd love his guitar soloing, but if you try to make me laugh, he doesn't have it.
What did you think of the 50th anniversary gigs that he did? There's a shitload of clips of him playing with the Stones on YouTube. You got an opinion on some of that stuff?
Oh, I just love the fact that he, after all these years, he's still playing a Gibson.
Yeah.
I mean, the Stones sound changed again when Ron joined. It's pretty much, apart from a few songs like It's Only Rock and Roll, it's pretty much a Stratty band, isn't it? A Fender band.
Yeah. But those clips, if anyone hasn't seen them, go and search them. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's good seeing this big guy. He's 4 times the size of what he was when he was. But that's something that we all prone to as we get older.
It's just in life. I mean, we think what could have happened, if Brian stayed alive or Mick stayed, but everything just runs its natural course. It's unfortunate, but what they've given us is we should appreciate. It's Only Rock and Roll, was I think one of their worst reviewed albums of their whole catalogue. I think half of it, maybe a third of it's really good, but they were starting to get a bit stale.
Ed in the chats made a comment about Mick Taylor doing a record called Leather Jacket. Are you familiar with that?
No, I've never heard. When I used to collect records.
Yep.
And you kind of notice certain records that don't sell.
Yep.
And I mean, blues, jazz, original copies, all that sort of stuff. Everyone's hot for it. You'd always see Mick Taylor solo albums just sitting there. No one wanted to buy them.
Wow. So
it's kind of sad. Just the same as Bill Wyman's solo albums, and there's no. I wouldn't say magic, but there's. Maybe he just didn't have a hit song. Maybe maybe these guys go out, but they forget about, commercialism to a point. We've got to have a hit song.
I'm just going to, while we're talking about that, I'll just check to see if it's on Spotify, because I suppose what's really interesting is that you get told about some of these albums 20, 30, 40 years later, and you go back and revisit them and go, shit, they're pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The marketing's pretty cruel. I mean, sometimes they don't get the marketing push they deserve if they release a solo album. There's a lot of PR that goes into it, eh?
So there's Leather Jacket is here. But I won't play it because we'll get flagged. So what's interesting is that it's Slow Blues, Leather Jacket, Giddy Up, Alabama, Baby I Want You, featuring Mick, but they don't have any full albums. So I'll go and check some of that stuff out. You appreciate the heads up on that. Yeah, Mick is still alive, Todd. Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah,
Leather Jacket,
late 60s.
Leather Jacket, according to Simon, was from 79. So that's going to be interesting checking that out.
Well, he's probably...
Here's a good one too. Simon. He played on Dylan's Infidels album, Real Life and Empire Burlesque. Didn't know that.
No. So he would have to... I mean, he probably always remained a musician, but never had that spotlight ever, eh? Ever again.
Wow. No, I agree with you, mate. I agree with you.
Has he said on record, no pun intended, but that he regretted leaving the Stones ever? Obviously, financially.
I haven't. Yeah. Bloody Simon's right. Infidels. Sweetheart Like You. That's a great song. Wow. And obviously John Mayall. Yeah. Wow. Carla Olsen. Whoever. Someone mentioned Carla Olsen in the chat. Who was that? Ed. No, Carla Blay. Shit, he's been around, mate. He's done a bit of work.
Mick Taylor.
Yeah.
Good.
So what's your favourite Mick Taylor song in the Stones?
Solo or song?
Solo.
Too tough. Sympathy for the Devil, the live version. But Sway and Time Waits for No One really shows his talent.
I loved Sway. I'll never forget the first time I heard that.
Keith's not on that at all.
No, 15 years old, and just going, wow, what is this?
Yeah. If you listen to Sway, because I know you're a big Eddie Van Halen nut.
Yep.
There's some tapping going on too. Or hammering on, hammering off. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Simon's saying he's playing a Strat on the album Leather Jacket, so that's going to be interesting listening to that, because we're familiar with that Gibson-y tone. Ed's saying Love in Vain on Get Your Ya-Ya's Out's his favourite. That's pretty cool. It's that's got to be turned up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's his first studio album was he's in a hotel room. It's black and white. He's standing in the corner and he's got a Strat and he's holding the Strat up like the bottom down with the neck up the top. Can you research that? Came out about 75.
Yeah, hold on. Stupid thing. That album?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? What's he holding?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a Strat leaning up. So he's copying. He's copying Eric Clapton's first album.
Oh, I see.
And he's got the jacket on, got the suit jacket on. So when did that album come out?
75, 76. Pretty much straight away, I think.
And that didn't do well.
I don't think so.
How would he have felt about that, do you think?
Don't know. I mean, music's a funny thing. It's like acting. 1 minute you're hot, next minute you're gone.
Okay, so that album is called Mick Taylor, and Leather Jacket is on as the #1 song, and that's the album that came out in '79. That album there, Carl, that we're talking about. Can you see?
Yeah. Is that 79, is it?
Yeah, it came out in '79. So Simon's saying his favourite is the Brussels Affair. And yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of good recordings of that on YouTube, Simon. Hanging out for them to release that. Hopefully the Glimmer Twins will pull finger and release that.
Well, we've talked about this, and I still prefer Get Yayas Out, but there's a growing Stones fan base that are calling that the greatest live Stones album of all time.
Yes, I've heard that. I've been hearing that for years.
So possibly I might have to revisit it, but possibly they just were on the money that night, tight, and maybe the sound was really good.
I think both. I've listened to it and it's phenomenal. It's good. It's and there's no overdubbing.
Okay. Man, they must have played a lot of shows.
Yeah. So look, mate, it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I've had about 3 phone calls come through.
I've got a couple of hey, so we were 20 minutes a little bit late, guys, but we're always appreciating the guys jumping in and joining us in the chat, Simon especially. Ed, thanks for joining us, Ed. Appreciate your comments in the chat. Sound like a Stones nut, and thanks for drawing our attention to Rory Gallagher. I didn't realize that he was a contender for the band. Who else are we going to say? Todd, always a pleasure. So before we go, so did someone ask Rory to join the band and he said no? Do you know that, Carl? Have you heard that or not?
I just remember the name, but I don't know the exact how everything went down. It's something I have to research again, revisit.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out too.
Do you wear your Keith cuff at work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you wear that at work?
That's, mate, I have to tell you, there's a guy selling this on eBay. He's an English guy. Cost me 40 New Zealand dollars, which is not bad. It's surgical steel, and if you're a Keith Richards nut, it's better than $1,000 stainless, solid silver one. It's not bad.
But do you wear it at work? Yeah,
man.
What's the feedback been like from the people coming in?
Players, honky tonk woman, man. Brown sugar, just like a young girl should.
Have you thought about, because you're a Beatles guy, just getting those John Lennon glasses to match the cuffs?
Fuck off.
That's like a total contradiction.
Fuck off.
A tough nerd.
You're saying a skull ring. Yeah. Well, I'll get that for my birthday. but if I got the skull ring, that'll have to be cool.
Hey, Dad, I found your skull ring. Hey, son, where'd you get that from? Oh, Outcast Motorcycle Club.
Hell's Angel. Yeah.
Cool.
No,
all right. So wrapping up, Mick Taylor.
I'm not going to get John Lennon glasses. No.
You never wanted to, did you ever try wearing a pair?
No.
No, I never liked them either. Ozzy Osbourne could pull it off.
Ozzy Osbourne could pull anything off.
Even a bat's head.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll do a show next Monday. Promise, guys. We're going to get back to our weekly schedule. We've just had a couple of issues. So, I've got a mum that's got cancer, guys. So that was one reason why Carl and I couldn't do the show last week. And Carl busy with being busy with his work. Tuesdays is a bit difficult for him too. So if you guys want to check us out next week, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. No. So wrapping up, thank you guys for everything, all the support. The three phases, once again, the Brian we've talked about, the Mick Taylor, just an incredible period. And that period, I think, half of that period, 50% is Mick Taylor. His impact, his sound, his skill, his talent, the Stones peaked, and looking back, I'm grateful for Mick Taylor. I don't think Rory Gallagher would have been a good fit, or Eric Clapton, or any of these, Roy Buchanan. I think Mick Taylor was the man for the job, and he proved it with those great albums.
Cheers, Jimmy. I think a show we should do later on is we probably need to do a show on bands that were influenced, that we can, identify clearly who've made no bones about being Stones nuts, but also a couple of bands that we think may indirectly have been influenced by the Stones, because there's a few bands out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. We've talked, Black Crowes, Guns N' Roses, Ryan Adams, maybe, Kings of Leon, list goes on.
Oh, it's endless. It's endless.
Even though they couldn't capture the sound, they definitely tried to capture the image, especially the 80s LA hair bands, that whole Keith look, Mick look, Aerosmith,
Oh, yeah. There's a shitload of bands out there that we could talk about. Awesome. Cheers, man. I appreciate it, buddy.
Have a good night. Cheers.